All right, everyone. Welcome to the Rise Up Rich podcast. I'm your host, David Haas, and I'm sitting across from a very good friend of mine, and I think who's going to be an amazing guest because he's got like a really amazing story about following his passion and learning what it takes to become truly successful at everything that he does. Actually, I just made a video recently about, I remember Joe Rogan saying, like, once you become great at one thing, you can learn how to become great at anything. And I think this guy is a testament to that. He's the co-owner with his wife of Carrots and Dates. He's had a really successful hockey career. He's had a now really successful triathlon and Ironman career, and he's really gotten to the root of what it takes to remove the limits, to remove the barriers from achieving whatever it is you want to achieve. So welcome, Troy Maleyko from Carrots and Dates. Man, I'm super happy to have you here. I think where I want to start this is just along the journey of, you went to school, you got a job at Chrysler, you moved up quickly, and you're in like a management level position. But then your wife has this amazing business, Carrots and Dates, that she started, and the opportunity there is beginning to grow. And there's just a point that comes in your life where you're like, I'm just not happy doing what I'm doing anymore, and you make the decision to leave that job and like kind of go headfirst into like entrepreneurship. So just take me down that path, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for having me, Dave. I really appreciate it. And you've seen my journey all along the way, and you've had a very instrumental piece in that. So I thank you for sure. Chrysler. I kind of just fell into the regular routine, coming home in the summertime at playing hockey, and landed in Windsor Assembly Plant in the summertime, just working as a supervisor in the paint shop with your uncle, Marcel.
Yeah.
And it was great. You get a taste of the money, and I wouldn't say success, but definitely a dream job for somebody of my age. I'm early 20s, and coming home in the summer and making a pretty substantial amount of money. So that was always something that was kind of a bug in the ear for me once I was done school. So then you get trapped for a little while, right? And you're just you start with the family, and you get a house, and then next thing you know, you're kind of in the rat race, and that's kind of where I ended up. And we moved around a bit, and never really found our place for quite a while. And the more you get into that, the tougher it is to get out. Especially if my wife wasn't working. She didn't have the job that I had, so I was like the sole provider at the time. But so I guess in a way, Carrots and Dates was my out in a way. But I never really was able to pull the trigger on something until an unfortunate event when my wife was going through some health struggles, and then it made me really take a look and understand what was really important. We were both kind of thrown into this, and she hit rock bottom, for lack of a better term. And it really made me analyze where we're going with our life. And then finally I just said, it's time to move on. And we made a very rash decision with a boatload of debt, and the hopes of opening a second location for Carrots and Dates, which ended up falling through at that point. But I just knew that it was going to be something that I was starting to do a lot of personal development work on my own, and I was starting to see, getting uncomfortable and taking risks and going outside what people think is the norm often results in success. And I kind of just trusted that and made the decision to walk away. And, at first it was really difficult to be able to transition, because you're used to going to work in the morning, and then whatever time in between I would try and do some work on the business, because I was still helping her. Like, we were doing the farmer's market. I would go and drop the trailer off on Saturday mornings, and then unload her, get everything ready, and then go to work. Yeah. And then, come back and help pack everything up. And I was just, running, like lighting the candle at both ends. And it was taking a serious toll on me. And like on the surface, it would look like, we're very successful. I have a great job. We're driving new cars. We're, we have a house. We have a family, and we're eating good food and living somewhat of a healthy lifestyle. But deep down, there was a lot of things that needed to change, and one was the environment that I was in. Chrysler's a great place to grow in, for sure, but it just wasn't the environment that I felt was going to bring me to my best self. It helped me get certain tools along the way, which we'll touch on, with processes and systems and repeatability and building relationships, working with characters of all sorts, dealing with unions, and it's like a massive, it's like a small city inside that place. So you're really just working at getting things done in an environment of constant restrictions and pushback. To get. Let
me highlight on two things that I want you to like expand upon. The first is, how did you make that leap past like the fear of leaving that security? Because like people are so obsessed with job security, like, you gotta have job security, you gotta have benefits, especially like working at a place like Chrysler where the job security and the benefits are like really, really high, and like this is why people go to these. So what is the thing that says, like, was it the fact that Carrots and Dates was doing so well? Was it the fact that it was the interpersonal growth that you were like, this isn't the place for me? Or was it a combination? Like, what was going through your mind when you made that decision?
Yeah, I think waking up every day and not feeling like I'm living my purpose was a telltale. I can't continue to go to a place that I just don't feel alive. It doesn't make me want to run to work every morning, And I struggled for a long time, even just waking up to make it to work, because it was just not exciting for me. And nights were kind of my thing. And I probably wasn't the best employee at the end. And then that's part of why I felt like I needed to shift, because I didn't feel like it was beneficial to the company to have somebody there that wasn't fully in it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like a lot of people wait until Friday, and they just can't wait till Friday because their work week is over, and then they get to enjoy their whole weekend. Whereas I feel my whole journey in the last, say, 5 to 6 years is, how do I strike a balance where all parts of the day are just incredible,
Yeah.
And I think I've always been a risk taker. So, and I've been known to make very abrupt and rash decisions on something and go with it.
Well,
I don't know if it's maybe from my upbringing, or we picked up in 2009 because automotive was starting to struggle, and we just had our son Jaden. And he wasn't even 6 months old, and we moved out to Calgary. Not even knowing what was going to happen. Just went and cold called a bunch of places. When I flew there, met with one of my friends that I went to school with, and ended up landing a job 3 weeks after I got back. So just kind of gaining confidence along the way, knowing that when you take that risk, sometimes you're not gonna be successful in it. But if you're really understanding why it is that you want to take that risk, and you're willing to fail, and I don't like saying fail. I think you're either winning or you're learning, right?
Yeah 100%. And I think that I was just hearing this morning, actually, is that, like, risk is something that is kind of like, I think you are born with some inherent, like, a risk taker, like you're a risk taker, but I think it's also like something that can be exercised and like a muscle. It's like, if you're really adverse to risk, then take small risk in the beginning. And then soon, once you realize that by taking those risks and moving out of your comfort zone, it's like, no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. And I think you and Niviana are a huge testament to that. It's like, you took a risk, you moved up to Calgary, you quit a job at Chrysler. It's like, these are all like, as other people their minds might blow with the risk you take. Open another location. Like these are things that like are like big risks, but no matter what happens, it's like you always end up okay. Like even in the worst case scenario, all businesses close, whatever, you're going to be okay. And I think that was a big shift for me, is understanding that I'm going to be okay no matter what.
Yeah, I think one of the things too is I've always lived life to experience as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So even if something was to fail, like I went on vacation somewhere and it wasn't the greatest time in certain areas, but I found one little gem.
Yeah.
To me, that's a win, right? So if you can look at life in that way, it's like, what can I learn along the way? And what didn't go so well, and now I have that experience, and I could take that forward with me.
Yeah, it's like I just released a quote. It's like pain plus reflection equals growth. So it's like, if you can reframe failure or reframe pain or whatever it may be, and you guys know about that with the health struggles that Niviana, she was like, I think has been someone that has completely reframed something terrible happening to her and like turned it into this amazing, life-changing, altering, experience. It's like that's where you choose to live in a world where like, miracles are happening every day, and even you start to see the miracles in the most terrible, right? So I think you and Niviana are a testament. The other point I wanted to touch on is like, and this is something I've been struggling personally with, and I actually like had a spiritual revelation last night, which was really awesome because I kind of felt like I was at a stalemate recently. But one thing that I always admired about you was that you're like people are drawn to you, like you're just like this super laid back, easygoing guy that people want to talk to and hang around with, and you've always had friends around you, you've always had a good core group of people around you. It's shifted over the years. When you worked at Chrysler, you said like learning how to work with those people. It's like what do you think it is that gives you that quality, like that, just like that, I don't know, like that warmness about you or whatever?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That was like a cup of coffee.
Warm cup of coffee going down. Yeah.
My dad was he's still alive, so I shouldn't say was, but he's always been this beacon of light wherever he goes. Nice. And he took me around with him to work a lot when I was really young, and I never really understood it, and I kind of was annoyed by it. Mm-hmm. But it kind of socialized me and got me into places, and he was a connector. He was always, helping people and finding places to go to, talking to managers, and I just thought it was absurd growing up, but I think I've kind of absorbed a lot of that, and I'm not generally outgoing per se, but once I get into a group of people, I can definitely hold my own. But yeah, I think my dad, and then just all the experiences that I've had with sports, like I've been involved in sports my entire life, so just learning how to be in small and large groups and work in a team environment. I think it's hard to pinpoint one thing specifically. Yeah, well,
especially because I didn't prepare you for that question either.
But and my dad he would never let things rest. I started playing baseball when I was younger, and I remember he would find and he would seek the best teams and then move me there. Wow. So I started in Bell River where I grew up, and then he found a coach in Tecumseh that he thought would align better, and then we moved to Tecumseh, and then I moved to Windsor Expos, and then to Riverside, and I was able to meet and connect with all of these different people, and it pushes you into environments, whereas we get comfortable. Like an example is my son Jaden. He was super comfortable playing soccer and at his one team, and then didn't want to change. And then we switched him over to another team, and sure enough, he's thriving. So that gave him that glimpse at change is actually good, and change can be what kind of moves the needle from one place to the next.
Man, like I'm so glad you just said that, because like one of my regrets in my life is that my dad wasn't like a sports guy, and he didn't like push me in sports. And I had I would say like a natural athletic ability. I'm not amazing, I'm not at any sport, but I can play any sport and hold my own, right? And in hockey is like where I was naturally gifted. Like I didn't even start playing hockey until later in life, like I think like I was 7 or something, but like right away I was like, moving up quickly. But because I didn't have my like that the father figure that you did, that was pushing me to like become better and be more and push the envelope of my comfort zone. I never really ended up doing anything. I had success in hockey, but it was just at my own raw talent, right? And it was like I think that's a big thing, is like Gary Vee always talks about play your strengths, right? And it's like I just didn't have the opportunity to play my strengths there, right? Mm-hmm. So, and when I think about like kids that are coming up and are wanting to do whatever it is, and we're just using sports as the analogy here, but it could be anything in life. And as a parent, like really embracing what it is that they're good at and giving them all the opportunity in the world to become as great as they possibly can. That's what your dad did for you. I think that is so amazing, because I have this guy I went to grade school with. His name's Greg Garant. I'm sure he's probably not listening to this. Garant, actually, I said his last name wrong. Greg Garant. And he has this like 7-year-old kid that's like this like hockey all-star. He's got videos all over. Yeah, he's got videos all over YouTube of his kid doing all these like cool moves with a hockey stick. He's also like a really amazing golfer. And in the one video, and this is what struck me, it was like in the one video that he turned his entire basement into a hockey arena, like with boards and like glass and a net, and like obviously there's no ice, but it's just like it's a cement floor that he can shoot a puck around. And it's like, man, what an opportunity for this kid to become great at hockey or golf or whatever, but like giving him everything that he possibly can and finding him the best coaches. And like this is how people become great in sports, but also though you can turn that around to becoming like a great person
in anything.
Yeah. And so let's pivot off that, because we're going to talk about this last, but like you had like a good amount of success in hockey. Like you were like, then obviously as an testament to your dad, pushing the envelope, and you had a Division I scholarship in hockey, and you had a lot of success. And then now recently you've kind of transitioned, like obviously later in life, you transitioned to triathlons and Ironmans, and like in a very short period of time. Like when I ran my first marathon, to give you an example of the difference, I guess, of good parenting, of mindset, or whatever it is, I think I placed like 2000th, something like that, along those lines, like something crazy. Like I ran a decent time, like for my first marathon. I think it was 3:51, just to give the audience listening a perspective. Mm-hmm. And you go out and like in your second triathlon place like 4th out of I don't know how many people, but you like placed 4th, and it's like, okay, like this is what I'm kind of obsessed with. It's like, what's the difference between you and me? What's the difference between, I know obviously we've already highlighted one of those, which is parenting, right? You had the parents that were like, okay, I need to find the right people, the right coaches, and this is something that you've done amazing. Like when I went over to your house the other day and you were giving me some running tips, and you're like, yeah, I got this coach for this, and then I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, I'm not even scratching the surface on the information that you're taking in, right? So we've identified getting a coach, the proper parenting, but what else is it that was allowed you to take that greatness that you kind of experienced in hockey and move it into another sport like triathlon?
I really, again, it goes back to your influence from when you're young. I think my mom was my biggest fan, again, to the point where I was almost annoyed with it. She would tell me that I'm just, oh, you have executive qualities, hun, and you're doing just such great things. And even when it was just like something ridiculously silly, where you're like, hey, and she's like, I always knew you'd be successful, and and but that's how she was. She was just like a biggest cheerleader for me. So I always had this confidence in knowing that if I put my mind to something, that I'm going to be able to achieve it no matter what. And then my dad had these ridiculous methods of embedding different technique and skill and methods, and he would seek all. He'd go to machine shops and have weighted pucks made for me. Crazy. And we'd have real hockey nets, and we had a batting cage in our backyard. And I got into skateboarding, and he had Sports-a-Field guys come and build me a skateboard ramp when I was 7 years old. And it went different levels based on where I was at, all the way up to 8.5 feet. And I think they really molded me from such a young age and believed in what I could do. And then, it kind of transferred into a lot of different areas in my life. and just getting success in those wins along the way. Right?
Yeah, right.
It's like
the confirmation
they could come
does
and mold you as much as you want, but then if you don't actually believe what they're feeding you and you start seeing some failures, then maybe you don't push as hard as you could, right?
Yeah. I agree with that, but I think where I'll push back on you is that I think your parents probably gave you that confidence that even if you did fail, you weren't going to collapse into that failure, right? Mm-hmm. You were like going to be like, oh, this is a setback and I'm going to keep moving, I think that mindset is just so huge. Like, so if you had to suggest to someone now, like let's say you're giving me advice right now, mm-hmm. It's like, I say, I want to start getting into triathlons, right? And I want to have the level of success that you had in a short period of time, knowing though that I didn't have the mindset that you had that was installed by the parents. It's like, what advice do you think you would give to me to like get into, let's say, triathlon? Because I do bike and I do swim and I do run, right? I just haven't done it all together in a race. So what would you think are the critical factors that allowed you to achieve the level of success that you've had in triathlon?
Set an outrageous goal.
I love that.
Just that, and like, when I heard about, say for example, when JFK came into office, mm-hmm. and I took a lot of corporate training. I took Dale Carnegie training when I was at Chrysler, and one of the big takeaways was talking about setting just these outrageous goals that are measurable, like SMART goals,
Right.
Where before JFK came into office, it was to lead the planet or lead the Earth in space exploration. It was a very vague goal that nobody really knew what that meant, right? But then when JFK came into office, he said, I'm going to put a man on the moon by the end of this decade. And it was very specific, and there was a time.
Yeah.
And what did he do, right? And
and
so I kind of look at things like that. And when I signed up for my first triathlon, I hadn't even swam or rode a bike. And I signed up for one that was, a half Ironman distance. And then that was the motivator for me. I knew that now, okay, so I've got my goal out there. My big audacious goal was to make the world championship by the time I'm 40.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice.
So that's my big goal that I'm going after. So then I'm like, okay, so what should I be setting in the future to keep me motivated along the way? And then also taking the experiences that I've had and the failures, like for me, when I went to college, my potential was not, I did not achieve my potential with my hockey career.
Right.
And for me, it's almost like redemption. So it's like that motivator for me to be like, okay, so now's my second chance. Now I'm pure and there's nothing holding me back. It's all on me. And now it's time to kind of show up and see what I can do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched the Michael Jordan.
I did. Yeah.
But so he would almost make up these stories of like people who wronged him, and then that would motivate him in the game. So it's kind of similar in that way. Like I'm not Michael Jordan, but I'm just saying like that mindset, that whatever it is that can get you fired up or pissed off to perform, and that's what I found for myself has been a motivator for me.
Yeah, and the only thing that I always like push back about the Michael Jordan thing is that it's like. Maybe this is just a wrong belief that I have, it's that I don't want to be motivated by negative influences. Like, I don't want to be motivated by anger. I understand that anger is fuel. Like, I get that. Like, like you can, so I think, and even Hawkins in his book says like you can use anger as fuel, but just know that you got to go back and deal with that anger at some point. Right. And this is why people rise to the top and fall. Right. It's because they use anger. Michael Jordan's a testament to that. It's like, you sit there and watch him and his eyes are yellow and he's got a drink beside him. It's like, there's more going on. And I'm not making judgments of him. I'm just saying that there's something more at a deeper level going on. And it could be the fact that he used anger to fuel him his entire life. And then when he no longer had the outlet of sports to let that anger out, what's he doing with it? Right.
Yeah,
So
he went internally.
Yeah.
He hasn't dealt with.
So if Michael Jordan's listening, you want some coaching, you can hit me up. But anyways, but so for me, I want to look, I recognize the fact that, anger can be a fuel, but I don't really necessarily feel like I want to be fueled by anger. Like I want to be fueled by love and compassion and joy and the joy of actually the process and doing. But maybe I got to start feeling the anger a little bit again. I don't know. Like, what do you think about that?
And I think little bits of competition, and maybe with Michael Jordan's example is a little bit extreme, but something's got to motivate you and push you towards it.
And that's like a deep internal motivation that you had, though. Because when I ran my first marathon, just to give you an example, I ran the first and I ran it in 3:51. This is actually a great story. We'll make a great viewing for the podcast. Is I'm running my goal was to run the marathon in 3:45, right? And the whole entire race, I was ahead of the 3:45 pacer. Like I never even saw her, right? Couldn't even see her. Looked back, couldn't see her. The last mile, she catches me, right? And she says, and she could see I was dying, like I was hurting real bad, and I had a bunch of training issues. Not making excuses, but I had shin splints. The longest I ever ran was 30 kilometers, so I gutted out the other 12 kilometers, never running that distance before. And she says to me, she looks right in my eyes. She says, "Keep running with me, and you're going to finish this marathon in 3:45." And I stopped. Like at the next water station, I stopped and I didn't finish it. So like that regret, same that you kind of felt, motivated me to like, okay, I'm going to sign up for another marathon. But I signed up and I never trained for it. I never did it. I just never showed up. I paid the $125 and never showed up. So it's like there's something deeper at a deeper level that motivated you than that would motivate me. Maybe I was running the marathon for the glory of saying I ran a marathon. Maybe I didn't look deep enough into my motivations. A lot of times I realized, like one of the things I realized in my life is that everything I was doing was for the approval of other people, and mainly for the approval of women for a few reasons. Like, so I was like really into playing guitar for a long period of time. And then I came to the realization that the only reason I was playing guitar was to impress women. And literally I put that guitar
that is pretty impressive. If I was a woman, I'd be impressed.
So literally after I made that realization, I put that guitar in my basement. I literally haven't touched it since, right? Recently, I've been starting to feel the urge to play guitar again, but now it's coming from the proper place. Okay. So,
but this time it'll be Spanish guitar.
So it'll be classical. Anyways, okay. So what I'm trying to get at is, and I don't know if you can even answer this question, so don't feel obligated to. It's like, what's that burning motivation? Like, what makes you say, I'm going to sign up for this? And I know it. I answered it for myself. It's intention. It's a pure intention, right? My motivation was to like prove that I could do it in 3:45. It wasn't a clear cut intention. And when you said, I'm signing up for this, like once you make an intention, nothing stops you.
Yeah, and then you have to have that big goal, like where you want it and visualize it and see it and see yourself in it and feel yourself achieving it as if it's already happened.
Yeah, and that's the power of manifesting. Is that something that you do like as a daily practice or like a weekly practice or something? Like, do you find yourself visualizing like crossing the finish line, like these kinds of things?
Yeah, absolutely. I bought shoes that they say aloha on them on the front of the tongues. Cool. And I wear them. I don't wear them all the time because those are the shoes that I'm going to wear in Kona when I make it to the World Championship. Right.
Okay, I love it.
So that to me is like a form of visualizing. And you see people, they'll put certain signs up on the wall or they'll put something on their treadmill when they're running.
Yeah.
And it's all things to kind of remind you what it is that you're going after.
Yeah, right. To hold that in mind. And I think the big thing that I've recently come to this realization. Well, there's two. One is that manifestation isn't so much about looking at a quote on the wall. I think the quotes help. So I don't want to downplay that, or a picture or aloha on the shoes, but it's also about connecting to how you feel when you accomplish that goal, right? Mm-hmm. Like you said earlier, it's like when you believe it, like it's already happened, that's when you'll actually achieve it, right? Mm-hmm. So that is the power of manifesting. People get really confused about what manifesting is all about, but it's really about feeling the way you want to feel by achieving the goal. And once you feel that way, the goal is pretty much already obtained.
And that's incredible, because that was a realization that I had within the last, say, year, understanding that you can visualize and see stuff, but if you can't feel that feeling of what it is,
right,
then it's tough. Like, oh, well, I'm visualizing and I can see myself, but you're not going to achieve it until you can start feeling it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And it's hard. It's harder.
Well,
obviously.
but I think what you're starting to touch upon here is that there's a reason why you can't feel yourself in the future where you've reached whatever goal it is you want to reach, is because there's shit that's blocking you from feeling that way, right? Self-doubt, unworthiness, shame, whatever it is, guilt, regret. There's things that are in the way of you.
Old experiences.
Yeah, right.
You know, like, oh, you're just going to fall off the wagon like you did in this last experience. And in a way, if you can take that and use it as a way to be like, that's not going to happen again, you know, like unbalanced was a big thing for me. Is I would start doing certain activities around the business, or maybe I'd be spending too much time at work, or maybe I'm training too much. So the big thing for me when I first started training was, how can I mix this in and make family life and my personal social life, how can I make it so that it's all cohesive and together, instead of being super focused on triathlon, somewhat focused on the family, kind of bringing them along, letting the business fail,
right?
You know, so like, how can we balance? Like, to me, that's my whole goal, is to balance it all. Right. And how can I do, you wake up early in the morning.
And that's what I was going to say. Like, what are the tactics that you use to balance that?
Yeah. So it's making sure that I'm waking up as early as I can to get my workouts in. So especially,
what time do you wake up at?
Well, when everything was, I think when we were in a normal society, maybe like 4 months ago, I would be up at 5:30. Nice. And I would get all my workouts in before the kids would even wake up for school, right? And then you throw in, I was doing a lot of meditating, so I'd wake up in the morning, I'd do a quick meditation, make a coffee, sit for maybe an hour, and then I would go and do my workouts. And then by the time the kids are up, I'm way ahead of the ball. You know? And then it removes the opportunity for you to miss that workout later on, and also the guilt that comes with it when you're like, oh, I slept in and now I'm trying to make up that workout, because I've felt that. It's happened, you know, quite a few times where you're like, and then you don't want to feel that again. So you're like, okay, we got to go back to the balance. Got to go to bed a little bit earlier, you know? Yeah.
So if you're waking up at 5, because I think people are interested in this, because you're starting to hear like 5 a.m. is becoming like a more of a mainstream word, you know, like, or concept, I guess. So what time do you go to bed if you wake up at 5?
About 9:30. Yeah.
That's, you know, and people are like, when they hear that, because that's like, I go to bed, I struggle to stay awake until 10, right? So when people hear that I go to bed at like 9:30, they're like, oh man, come on. But I'm like, what are you really doing after 9:30? You know, like, you know, maybe there are some people that are night hawks and that will work into the night, but it's like, most of the time you're watching Netflix, you're going to the bar, you're getting drunk, you know, like whatever it is like, it's not pushing you towards maximizing your potential. And when you're not maximizing your potential, you're going to start feeling that guilt, that regret, right? It's like, not living your life to your fullest is the biggest regret that you're going to have at the end of your life. And like, you know, I am more concerned about having regret at the end of my life than I am about missing out on what my friends are doing, you know, because I go to bed at 9:30 and they go to bed at 2 a.m. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like when I was working at Chrysler, I would stay up till 11, 12 o'clock at night, and I would struggle to wake up in the morning. And mornings were my worst time. Now that, and you know, fast forward, I've been sober for almost 4 years now. Yeah. And now mornings are that's my time. Yeah. You know, and it's still, you struggle with it because most people's time is at night. Yep. Right? Yep. When it comes to social gatherings and stuff like that as well. So learning how to balance all that stuff is
right. So let's jump into the quitting of alcohol. I mean, that's something that you and I share in common. You know, probably the greatest shift I ever made in my life was quitting drinking. It was like, I think it was just like that one critical factor that needed to change in order for me to experience change on like so many other levels. So what led you to the decision? Like, what was it a problem? Like, just take me down the story.
Yeah. So back up to when I was 15 years old, I grew up a little bit too quick for sure. My parents always gave me the freedom to, be my own person, hang out with probably not the greatest people along the way. So I definitely was exposed to drugs and alcohol at a very young age.
Okay.
Like as early as maybe 13, I was, smoking cigarettes and drinking beers and stuff.
Yeah.
And then that just became acceptable amongst my group of friends. Right. Yeah. So then I'm playing hockey and I get, I started playing junior C in Wallaceburg when I was 15 years old, so now you take a 15-year-old kid and you're commuting to and from practice with, 19, 20-year-old kids, and you're hanging around with a lot older kids that are definitely, they're not purposely trying to expose you to that. It's just, that's the environment you're in. Right.
Yeah.
And they look at it as camaraderie and, accepting of a younger kid and kind of showing them the ropes. But that was definitely got sucked into that. And it just kind of stayed with me all throughout my junior. Like I played 5 years junior hockey. I went out west for a year, and the party continued. It was just a different party, right? And it was always to the point where I'd be somewhat moderate with it, but I'm a experience all, I go hard, and once I finished university and stuff, it still continued, but it was just a little bit, I definitely adjusted it for the scene that I was in. Like I wouldn't be full party mode, but I was being moderate, not just in the drinking, but it just in life in general. And I was kind of just going through the motions. Yeah. Yeah. And and then everything happened with Neviana, and it really, I saw her hit rock bottom, and she went for some coaching. She did it for about a year, and then I slowly started, I was seeing some big shifts in her and her awareness, and a lot of her old programs were coming to surface, and it was forcing her to make some big changes. And in that, she also quit drinking. So then once I started coaching, she had told me all along the way, you shouldn't have that beer right now, or why'd you have 2 beers? It wasn't like coming home bombed every night and I couldn't slurring my words all over the place, but it was just, she would give me little reminders, like, you probably shouldn't have that drink, and like, why are you drinking? And she was kind of on me with it, you know? Yeah. And it wasn't until I started going to be to like a coach who really kind of narrowed in, and I basically sent him a whole bunch of information on, what my life has looked like and some of my struggles, some of my highlights. And one of the first things was, you're an alcoholic. Well, and I was like, you know what? And then I didn't even fight him, because I was like, you know what? All the worst things that have ever happened to me was when I was drinking. Yeah. And, including, being at school, and, I got a DUI when I was 23, and I just, all my, I had some great memories, but I had some really terrible ones, and I knew that I wasn't living up to my full potential. Oh man. Right. That's
so familiar to my story too. It's like, I literally viewed alcohol as like a barrier to me, living my dreams, and I actually, when I quit drinking alcohol, it was because I was so convinced that it was a block to my success that I was like, I'm going to quit drinking alcohol until I'm a millionaire. That's what I used to say. Right. And then over time, I started realizing like all the negative impacts it was having on my life, not just blocking me from the money, which I was after at the point. It was blocking my joy, and it was hurting my relationships. And it was just like, it just had so many negative impacts that I was just like, now it's like, I don't care if I make $100 million. I'm like, I'm never going back. Like that's how passionate I am about it. That it's just like, it was such that like, critical point that created all these dramatic shifts. Is like, how could I ever like just turn my back on it? Right. So like, you said that the one thing you realized it was blocking your potential, but was there anything else that like really like was a really amazing awareness that allowed you to like be like, oh, this is it?
Yeah. Just numbing, using alcohol to deal with my problems.
Yeah.
Instead of, I would wait until the kids and Naviana would go to bed, and I'm a deep thinker. So I would go out into the garage and I'd, start thinking about different ideas, and I'd have a beer, and then I'd have 2 beers. And I'm like, it just didn't feel right at all.
Yeah.
Or like when things are not going well, I would have beers. When things are going really well, I would have beers. Because it was like, 100%. And it was baked into me a little bit too, right? Like success in hockey, after the game, we'd all go out and party, right? Yeah. So it's just breaking those old habits and realizing that like we're only on this planet for so long, and I don't want to be waking up and knowing that I didn't give my best effort the day before. And alcohol was such a huge restriction to my overall success. And like, it was hindering my ability to be my best self.
Yeah.
On so many different levels. Yeah. And also I was hanging, and I feel like a lot of the friendships and relationships that I had built along the way were strictly because of, our interaction and our relationship with alcohol, and how it weaved itself into what we were doing, right?
Oh, it's like,
like golfing and all these different things that I thought that I really enjoyed. I realized that I don't really enjoy golf that much.
And like, I found that too. It was like, it just started, like alcohol just started working its way into everything I did. Like if I was wakeboarding, it was like we're drinking beers while we're golfing, we're playing volleyball. It's like literally everything started revolving around drinking, and it's like, and even just like my joy and my happiness of like just enjoying those things revolved around drinking. So now when I do things, I'm like just really in tune to like, do I really enjoy doing it? Like the guitar thing was an example. It's like, do I really enjoy doing this, or am I like only doing it because I'm incorporating alcohol into it? So like
there's a purity now.
Yeah.
Where before it was like you just kind of bake everything in with alcohol, and you're like the whole focus on going there. Like, I don't really want to go to that person's house for this birthday party. Yeah. But I know he's got really good beer.
Yeah. So, right. Or there's gonna be beer there. Yeah. It's kind of like what I do with pizza now.
Yeah. and then you start, you start really, you show up at places that you want to be there fully.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Not just because of the, the carrot dangling of alcohol in front of you, or, whatever other activity it was. And it really helps you become more aware of who you are and who you want to be.
Yeah. And then, so did that happen? Did you quit Chrysler before you quit drinking, or you quit drinking?
I quit Chrysler, and then I started running almost immediately. And then we moved. Right. There was a series of events that were just really not so great along the way. Like Naviana's mom was in the really horrific car accident when we were building our house, and so at that point I was still drinking. And then Naviana's things happen with her health, and so then I just again started realizing this is and I was just waiting for somebody other than my wife to tell me that I should quit drinking.
No, that's so true. And I had that same thing for me, and you did the same thing. Like, you never went to AA or rehab or anything. It's just like you were able to come to the awarenesses necessary. And like when you heal at that spiritual level, it's like you don't need any of that stuff. You can just like get to the root and be done with it. And we're very similar in that. But it was the same for me. It was like I had Andrew that was kind of like making subtle suggestions like, hey, it's like we're playing volleyball and you drank 6 beers and everyone else had iced tea. And it was like these little subtle like.
So what are you saying? I'm just a really good volleyball player when I'm drunk?
Yeah, right. So, and then I would get defensive, and now I come to the realization like anytime I'm getting triggered or defensive, it's like something that's still happening inside of me. So I was defensive because I knew it was an issue, right? So he starts making some subtle suggestions. I go to a healer and she says it's like all about self-doubt, and I start building this picture, and then finally I meet one other guy that is like, he's the guy. He's successful, and he was into martial arts like I was, and he was the life of the party, which that is what alcohol was allowing me to be. And like right in that moment, I just kind of connected all the dots, and I was like, oh, I'm like, if I stop drinking alcohol, I'm not going to be the life of the party anymore. I'm not going to be cool anymore, right? So then after I made the decision to quit, I had to then work backwards and start knocking down all of those walls that alcohol was knocking down for me, right? Which was like, that's like really where I started getting in tune with my true self instead of this version of myself that was not who I really truly was.
I think it was Rich when I was reading Rich Roll's book, Finding Ultra.
Right.
He talks about how when he quit drinking, he took away, it was like taking your medicine away, but the problems are still there, right? So all these symptoms and things are still popping up.
100%.
And it makes it worse in the beginning to be able, and it's still a struggle to work through your emotions and actually have to sit and figure out what it is that's triggering you. You know, I get triggered all the time, and it's like when you combine it with journaling and surrounding yourself with people where you can actually have real conversations with them. I find it just allows you to air out some of your dirty laundry and be able to say and be who you are and express yourself. It's like it's like a pressure cooker, Yeah. If you don't have a way to vent,
right,
then you're just going to explode on somebody, right? Yeah. So, and I feel like strategically, I've started inviting a lot of people into my life, you being one of them, when I first quit drinking, just to be able to talk about some of the struggles and things that I should be looking out for, and just have like that person to kind of guide you and help you feel like it's going to be okay.
Yeah, and you're like a big believer in like coaches and being coached. Like you have your coach with the triathlon and stuff. So it's like, and then you had the experience with your coach and like coming to these realizations. So I mean, for me, like I'm like fully, obviously I'm a coach, so it's like I'm fully committed to the power of coaching because I just know how powerful it is. So it's like something that I truly believe in. But like why don't you just expand briefly on what coaching has kind of done for you, and what do you think created the big, and not just with personal work, but I mean with the triathlon and stuff like that. Like what does your triathlon coach give to you that you might not be able to get to on your own, kind of thing?
It's the bird's eye view. I look at it very similar to running a business. If you're in the business and you're on the floor and you're working and you can't possibly be able to step back, if you don't have that team of people around you to support you so that you can step back and stay in your role. My role in triathlon is my coach gives me all my workouts, and then my role is to perform those workouts to the best of my ability. Right. And then it takes the guesswork out of it. And you can look at the parallels of anything, like you don't have to know everything. You just have to know somebody that knows everything.
I love that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Was that bird's eye view? It's like, it's like focusing on the context instead of the content, right? Which is like the content is like of a business is like the operations and the day to day. The context is like, where do you want those operations and that day to day to take you? Yeah. Like what's the overall goal of the corporation? And someone from the bird's eye view can say, well, you're saying that you want this business to do this, but your actions are actually saying that it's going to do this, right? So I think that is what's so. I mean, I paid $6,500 for a coach for 4 30-minute calls, right? Like, but I tell you, it was worth every fucking dollar, right? Because they did exactly that. They focused on the context. Like, and I was saying I wanted to do all these big things, but my actions weren't in line with that. You know, she was like, you're obsessed with like figuring out how to do it. So, but you're not doing anything, you know? And like, that was like the one little critical piece of advice that I needed, completely transformed everything that I'm doing, you know? So, the power of coaching is huge. So let's do a terrible transition and just talk about carrots and dates in the business. All right. You guys, you know, the first thing I want to talk to, which I guess, it's not controversial, but you guys recently made the decision to close your Walkerville location. So, I mean, carrots and dates, I mean, Niviana was so ahead of her time when it came to carrots and dates. Like, probably one of the first real vegan restaurants in the city, you know, and just like the amount of like fanfare that she, like, I just remember like, she's is just like so well received in the community, you know? So, so, you know, you had like really early, I don't want to say success, because I know there were struggles and it was tough in the beginning, but like, people really took to the business, right? And you guys, you know, have done an amazing job of creating the corporate culture and making the community involved in what you're doing. So you guys just recently made the decision to close, and with COVID and everything going on. So it's like, what led to that decision? Where do you see the future of carrots and dates going? What's led to the success of it? Like, just give it to me, all of it. You know, like, I'm interested.
Yeah. I think definitely the carrots and dates is a reflection of where Niviana and myself used to be with our diet, and it was birthed out of fear and struggles with food, right? And the message has always been, put the best ingredients in your body, and it's always been, you know, we're going to do everything plant-based, and it's going to be clean and organic as much as possible. And we've evolved so much since then, right? And we realize now, with all of our personal struggles, you know, Niviana and myself, we were both eating fantastic. And then how are you still prone to sickness, right?
Right. Yeah.
So then you start going down all these different rabbit holes of personal development and spiritual and aligning with different people within the community. And you start seeing that their food is one small aspect to the overall picture of health. And where we're at today, and where carrots and dates is at, is we've evolved so much outside of the original intent of the business, to the point where we're ready to show people where we're at today and launch something that aligns more with not just food, but with our spirituality, and bringing in gratitude and real, you know, some mindful approaches to how we're serving, and kind of taking what we've been doing in the kitchen for a long time with our staff, and having our, you know, 2-day meetings. We talk about our feelings, emotional intelligence, and we're just ready for a new cutover. And I feel like us as humans, every 5 years, and I truly believe this, if you're growing, there's going to be some people left behind.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I 100%.
If you're not growing, then you're going to be with the same, unless you were blessed with just the perfect conception and these parents that were just brought you up in this environment that's completely aligned and everybody's just growing in harmony. It's like Pleasantville.
Pretty rare.
You know, it's very rare. So, and then that's kind of just where we're at with it. And the other thing too is our priority has always been our children.
Yeah. Love that.
We had some key people within our Walkerville team that decided to make a move, and we're super thankful that we had them along the way, and they're growing, and it's time for them to make a transition, right? So when we couldn't have possibly thought of being able to open Carrots and Dates in Walkerville again and give it the level of attention and the focus that it deserved, to be able to, one, get it up to the level of quality that we want it to be at, and then still be able to manage the kids and launch a new brand with Nourish. So yeah, it was not a decision out of finances. It was a decision strictly about maintaining that balance.
Yeah.
And where are we at with our own personal beliefs, and to come see overall the location, the capacity of what we can produce out of there is more in line with what a real restaurant would be. There's a lot of things that we had to make. We had to make some changes, and and it just came down to a bunch of different factors, and we made the decision. And Neviana is pursuing her coaching. I've signed up for coaching now as well. And in order for us to be able to continue pursuing our next chapter, we had to let one of the restaurants go.
Yeah. No, and again, it's like, I love that. It's like every 5 years, it's like you're going to have shifts in your life if you're growing, right? And I think like one of the things that I really, I don't want to say hate seeing, but it's just like, I hate when I see people that just stay at one level their entire life. And I'm just like, to me, it's just like they're asleep. And I just want to go up and slap them and say, hey, it's time to wake up. Like there's room for growth, but I have to let go of my desire to change other people, right? And I think that was big for me, is this learning to do that, is just let go of that desire and just focus on the change that comes from within. And then, like you say, it's like if people get left behind, they get left behind. You have to come to the realization that that's part of their journey, is being left behind. You know, and it's
either they see what you're doing and they wake up and they come with you, or they decide to stay where they're at.
They stay
either way, we send them lots of love and wish them the best. But we're both on a trajectory that, we're not going to look back and regret anything. And I think it wouldn't be good for us to continue operating in something that we're not fully aligned with.
I love that. I love it. Like, man, it takes a lot of courage to do that. Because, like, think about how many people that are stuck in like dead end jobs and they're working for the weekend. Like, man, I'm the opposite. I can't wait till the work week starts. I'm like excited. Like, I was just up in Huntsville for the weekend, and while I had a great time and I enjoyed the moment, I tried to stay present as much as I possibly could. I was ready to, like, Monday morning, I'm like, I can't wait to get back. That's when
you're in the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And it's like, how you can't fake that.
No.
Right? So when you're in your true passion and you're pursuing what it is that you love, if you're aligned with that, it's so much easier to produce. Like, I know you were talking about the amount of content and everything that you're putting out right now. It's like you're not doing it to please other people. You're doing it because that's what's fulfilling you, and it's motivating you, right? And I know there's a lot of people. They say like 70% of people that are in their jobs, they don't even want to be there.
Yeah.
Right.
And the reason they don't make the leaps is because of those internal limits of fear and things like that. So it's like, if you're listening to this podcast, or watching a video, it's like, this is your opportunity to be like, what are you not doing because of these limiting belief systems, because of self-doubt, because of fear? It's like, are you stuck? Are you floating? It's like, this is your wake-up call, It's like from two people that have made the leaps, done. We've flown. I love this. I got to contact this girl from grade school. There was this girl in grade school. I don't know if I'm supposed to use her name, but her name is Kimberly Dorino, and she wore this pin to school one day that said, "Go against the flow." Like, she had, and there's these fish swimming in one direction. It's like, go against the flow. And I was like, Kimberly, your pin is wrong. It's supposed to be go with the flow. And I always thought she was so far ahead of me spiritually. Yeah. And now I look at that and it's like, ultimately, like for me, it's like, that's what I'm always looking at doing. Is like, what is everyone else doing? I'm going in a different direction, right?
And that's another thing. My dad would always say, be different.
Yeah.
Like, I'd wear these ridiculous salad bowl helmets when I was playing hockey, and I'd have Troy on the corner of my shirt, and I was the most outrageous looking hockey player out there. But I was different, right?
Yeah. No, that's it.
Again, at the time, I was so embarrassed, and it put me into a place where, I didn't enjoy it, but it also got me comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's my thing now, as much as I don't like it. And I'm like, you show up this morning for a swim and they start talking about swimming out way further than I've swam this year. At first I was like, oh, that's, but then you embrace it, and then you get it done, and it's another win where you're like, see, I embraced feeling uncomfortable. And now it's like strengthened my aura, whatever it is you call it.
Resilience.
Now I'm able to carry that with me to whatever other challenge it is that I'm going to go through.
Once you become great at one thing, you can learn how to become great at anything.
Yeah, especially with YouTube.
Yeah,
I started making bread. I'm a bread maker.
Yeah, exactly. YouTube has all the answers.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's leave it at that, man. I'm super excited to have you here. I mean, your story is like just unreal, and just the courage to like just keep following your passion, and not falling victim to the opinions and the positions of other people, and just be like, for both you and Niviana, like we're following our passion and our purpose. And it's like, I don't want to be harsh, but it's like, if you don't like it, like too bad. But it's just like, when we don't want to get caught living living the life of like what other people want us to live. Like we want to live our own life and live our true self. Right. I think the path to that is through inner work and getting connected to who you truly are. Get rid of all the beliefs and the bullshit that you took on subconsciously as a kid, and get clear. And I think that you guys have both, I mean, I had Niviana on this podcast too, and like have just like, what an amazing testament, like as a couple, you guys are like, powerful together and help each other grow. So I'm excited to see what the future has in store for you, and maybe I'll come to Hawaii and be your crew member for the Ironman.
I need a coach, a mental coach.
I'll be your mindset guy. Yeah, I love it. So thanks for being here, man. And we'll definitely have to do it again.
Thanks, brother.